I'm Geri Hawley, and this is Finlandia Fridays.
Welcome to Finlandia Fridays. My name is Michael Babcock. I am your host for this weekly interview series here at Finlandia University. This week we are joined by Geri Hawley, instructor in our physical therapist assistant program. Welcome to the show, Geri.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We are happy to have you talking about one of our more popular programs, and a program that has really, I don't want to say skyrocket, but it's really taken off in the last probably 10, 15 years. It's become one of our really core programs here at Finlandia, and that being our physical therapist assistant program. Before we go any deeper into it, I'm just hoping you can give an introduction to what the program is.
We're designed to prepare students to go out into the clinical field and work with patients under a physical therapist to be able to treat patients and get them better in any pathology that they have, and that's what we're really trying to do. So we really work a lot on lab skills, their handling of patients, working with patients, but then they also obviously have to know the informational background too. So we do classwork and lab work.
Excellent. And the program itself is a 2-year program. Well, kind of 2.5. It's the first year is really general. The second year you really go very much so into the PTA part. Tell us a little bit about that second year and what students learn during that year, where it's a lot more intensive, and it actually goes quite into the summer then as well.
Correct. We actually call it our technical phase because that's when they're actually doing all of the PTA classes. And so we start them off with, in the fall, they're doing they're doing PTA classes, but they only do it for 11 weeks because the final 4 weeks of a 15-week semester is actually clinicals. So they'll take 11 weeks of classes, and then those last 4 weeks they go out into a clinical setting. It's a 40-hour-a-week job, so to speak. And so they are working under a clinical instructor, learning, using the skills and the knowledge that they gained in the classroom. And then in the spring, they kind of do the same thing. It's just that they're learning different topics, different things. They go a little bit longer. It's a 13-week semester, and then they take 2 weeks out of the last semester, and then they go into their clinicals. They start their clinicals. So the first clinical is 4 weeks, but then the last 2 clinical sessions are each 5 weeks. Okay. So that's why it goes into the summer. So it'll go into, they have 2 weeks of the final semester, and then 3 weeks into the summer, and then an additional 5 weeks. So they'll actually be in 3 clinical settings.
Excellent. And I love to hear that, because I think that one of the best ways for anybody to learn is to get their hands in and to really see these things and experience it firsthand. And it sounds like our students get to do quite a bit of that. Is that normal for a PTA program? And what do the students kind of react to with that? Okay.
Some PTA programs that we've heard about, they do all their clinicals at the very end. Some of them do it while they're teaching. We have found that it just seems, especially being in the area that we're at, we can't really do clinicals while we're teaching because we don't have the availability of clinical sites. So, but we feel that having that clinical at the end of that first semester, it's a way for students to have experience, for them to kind of hang their knowledge onto a hook, so that they're able to take what they've just learned, use it, and then when they come back in the spring, they've had some experiences. So now they can kind of relate to those experiences, and it makes more sense for that final semester. So we've really thought that this was a really good fit for Finlandia.
Does it change the students a lot when they come back for that second semester, having then seen what it's like to be in a clinical setting and work with patients and with the physical therapists?
Yes. A lot of students, they and I hate to say this, but it really is true, they just want to get working. They've been in the clinical setting now, and sometimes it's really hard for them to gear up for classes because they've seen the clinical, and now that's what they want to do. They want to go work. And so sometimes it's really hard to get that mindset back to classes. And then it takes a few weeks, and then they get into the swing of it, and then they're back. But usually a lot of them, they just want to go out and work. They've been there, and they've seen it, and they want to do it.
I think that brings up one of the points of this program that's really interesting. And this program, like we said at the beginning, it's a 2-year program, but it's a program that students can expect a lot of returns out of. The employment rate away after graduation is extremely high, and as well as a lot of students that are, especially students that are at other schools, can come in here, especially if they have their generals done, and they can get out in only a year.
Correct. Yes, and we're seeing more and more of that now. It wasn't so much the case years ago, but now we're seeing that a lot more, where students, even with bachelor's degrees, are coming in, and because they've got their gen ed classes taken care of, they can do the technical phase in 1 year, plus that summer, that summer of the clinicals, and they can really get their PTA degree in 1 year.
Yeah, and this is a great time to remind our viewers of the new transfer pricing we have, which has made our pricing for transfer students right on pace with the average for most state schools in Michigan, which is another thing that makes it a lot more attainable for these students. We talked a little bit about these, the job placement rates, but there's other things that are really impressive with the PTA program, and I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about the test. When a student finishes their program here, they have to get their licensure. What is that called, and what's that experience like for our students?
Well, it's a national exam, and actually Michigan didn't even require it up until a few years ago. So they've only been requiring to be nationally licensed. I think it's been about 4 or 5 years now. But up until that point, they didn't have to. But now they do, which is good, because many of the other states, almost every other state now requires licensure. And once they take that national exam, they can work in any state. They just have to have their license transferred. And we have an extremely high pass rate on our national exam, which is really good. So then once they take that national exam, they can pretty much work anywhere.
That's excellent. And I think it's really important to talk about these graduation rates, especially as we enter graduation season. Last week we talked a little bit about how it's graduation season here at Finlandia. I understand you have 14 students this year that are going to be walking. Tell us a little bit about that class and what it was like to work with them.
I don't know what it is, but we just have great students in our program, and I can honestly say that every year I'm just impressed with our students. We have, I know that the program, it's tough, it's not rocket science, but there's just a lot of information that they have to process in a short amount of time, and they do it, and it's tough going. They have to spend a lot of time in lab and practicing and studying. But I'm so impressed at the quality of our students that we get here. I really am. And this class fits the mold that I've seen.
Excellent. I want to thank you again for coming on to talk about the PTA program. It's a really exciting program. We'll have a link to it in the show notes here if you go to finlandia.edu/Fridays. There's one other thing I want to talk to you about. You're actually from Ontonagon.
I am. Ontonagon.
Ontonagon's about an hour here from Hancock. Talk a little bit about Ontonagon and why our students should make sure they make a trip out west a little bit to experience the natural beauty that is Ontonagon.
Ontonagon, to me, I know, because I've had people ask me, how come you don't move to Houghton? Because I'm working here. And I said, we're right on Lake Superior. In 15 minutes, I can walk to the lake. We're at the foothills of the Porcupine Mountains. And every year we hike up there and camp up there. I ski at the Porkies every weekend. And it's just this nice little community nestled between mountains and lake. And we don't have the traffic you guys do.
That's something we love to talk about as a whole, as a traffic up here, being in a small town is much more attainable for students. Our campus is spread out between two kind of campuses a little bit, but they're only about a 5-minute walk from each other, and the drive is never going to be painful. But make sure you get out to Ontonagon. The other part about Ontonagon is we want to mention next week is the mobile food pantry. That's going to be on Thursday night at the Ontonagon High School. I know you're planning on volunteering at it.
Yes, I just found out about it, and I'm thrilled to be able to help.
Excellent. Should be a lot of fun. Get out there. If you know somebody that's in need, make sure they come out. There's no expectations to come out there. There's no requirements of anybody. So there's just going to be a lot of fresh food. We've done this before in Baraga County. We did it here on campus a couple of years ago as well. It's a really great opportunity for those in need. And we also are looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, contact Soren Schmidt. He's the pastor here on campus. In the show notes, you'll find his contact information as well as a link to find out more about the mobile food pantry. Thank you again, Geri, for being on this week.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And we will see you guys next Friday.